Hi there, I'm Steve Bullock, Guitar Moog. I'm currently in self-isolation here in Brussels with some pretty mild, thankfully, coronavirus symptoms. I'm the guitarist in Vanity Drones, and we released our new first EP last week, and we put some pictures out of my pedal board, which I used on recording it. And I had a few people asking questions or asking me why I need so many pedals or how I use them, or to give it a run through. So as I'm just sitting around in bed watching Netflix, I thought I would take the opportunity to do a pretty quick rundown of what this is and why it's so big and how I use it in the Vanity Drones. I actually use it for two things. I use it in the Vanity Drones and I use it for experimental ambient music. To play, if I'm playing rock and blues and stuff, which I do in my other band Zinner, I use a totally different setup, completely different pedal board and into a nice valve amp. Much more sort of classic setup. This is really specifically for ambient stuff, and it's also useful because we're a little acoustic group and we don't play loud, and we rehearse in living rooms and kitchens. So you know, I need something where the sounds that I find can be instantly usable. That, you know, I don't have to worry about setting them up again or running into different amps and different rigs and stuff, you know. So the basis of it is this, which is the Line6 HX Stomp, which is a small version of their HX, and I use this pretty much just for amp modeling. And I run a stereo rig, so it's 2 amps with a compressor after it. And the amps I use the amp simulations I use are Mesa Lone Stars. I went through all of the clean sims because I use mainly clean sounds. I went through all of the clean amp sims, and that was the one I found that was sort of the most satisfying high headroom sound. I found the Voxes and the Deluxe reverbs and twins and stuff to be a little bit thin sounding, and actually to break up a little bit too quickly as well. Whereas I found the clean channel of the Mesa Lone Star has really nice sound, and I just have 2 identical amp sims, left and right, which uses up, to be honest, most of the amp and cab sims, which uses up most of the processing power, and it then goes into a stereo compressor, which just brings out a little more detail of the sound, so I don't really use that for volume level control or to attenuate peaks. It's really to bring out the sort of details in the sound, because I tend to use pretty layered sounds, as you'll see. So that's always on, and this is the clean sound of that. The guitar I pretty much always use in the Vanity Drones is this, which is the Fender Ed O'Brien Signature Strat, which has a sustainer built in, which is controlled here, which we'll come to a bit later maybe. So the other 2 pedals, as you'll hear, that sound is not really all that. It's not necessarily the ideal, most beautiful clean sound you're looking for, but I have 2 always on pedals at the beginning of the chain, which is this, which is the Janglebox JB Nano compressor, which gives a lot more sustain and also allows you to hear distinct notes and chords and get the detail of the guitar sound coming out. And then the level is boosted, and as a tone sweetener as well, I have this, which is the Xotic EP Booster. EQ boost in some nice places and warms things up a bit. So I use it as a tone sweetener rather than as a boost. You can see that it's at its minimum level here. So they're always on, so that's the basic. But to be honest, I almost never use that. The second function that the HX Stomp has is that it controls the tempo, the overall tempo, and the MIDI, and sends MIDI to this, which is the GFI Specular Tempus. And this is a really amazing little box that's full of really studio quality delays and reverbs. I mainly use it for reverb. I use it for delay occasionally, and actually the delays are so good that what I'd really like is two of these, one setup to use delays and one setup for reverbs, so that I can use both at once would be ideal. So I have a different reverb setting for each song. I have a preset in the HX Stomp for each song, and that has a tap tempo programmed into it, and it has a matching preset on the Specular Tempus. And when I change songs here using this switch, you get the reverb that corresponds with the song. So this is Feather. Algorithm on the Specular Tempus, which is their kind of flagship reverb sound in there. But there's a hell of a lot in here. You can spend days and days exploring this. This is another track that's uses what they call their vortex reverb, which is a modulating reverb. Kind of movement in that. I find one that uses something different. This one uses what they call a tremble reverb, which has a tremolo but acting only on the reverb tail. Very lovely indeed. What else have we got? Yeah, this is a lovely vortex one again. So that's the vortex one with a very slow modulation in it. And then to make the core sound for the song, I pretty much use this panel of stuff, and I put notes in the song title here. So this says last time plus chorus plus delay. So I use this 2C electronic. So we have first the algorithm here is voices, which kind of adds an upper octave choral. It's basically the Specular Tempus's shimmer reverb. And then it has chorus here, which if you hear on its own, amazingly cheap and excellent pedal which emulates a Juno. The chorus module that was built into old Juno synths. And I use this delay, which is almost always set to a tape delay. And then add the reverb. this track, I use it for volume swells, using the volume pedal or the volume control on the guitar, with the sustainer on the Ed O'Brien Strat, which can get these kind of string and cello and violin like. Thing for me is really to have texture and movement in the sound, because what we're doing here is we're using the reverb and the delay to sustain notes way beyond when they've stopped sounding on the guitar. But what I really like is there to be movement and stuff happening within that reverb and delay tail, within that sustained bit. So we can also take one which I really like, that adds the harmonic trem from this Supro, which I'm a huge fan of this Supro pedal. With the harmonic trem on it, it's absolutely beautiful. Phaser to it here. Again, for me, it's all about creating movement. To use the tape delay in this TC Electronics Flashback II, because it has some real movement in it. If you hear the repeats without the reverb on them, it really evolves over time. The repeated sound really changes a lot. There's modulation in there as well. So the idea for me of combining the delay and the reverb is that the amount of reverb that you have controls really how distinct the repeats are. So you can hear here the repeats are very distinct. And if we have just the reverb, we're not hearing any real repeats in that. It's a single wash. But you put the two together and you get smeared repeats that have some movement and something happening within the reverb. But they're a little bit smeared. It's not that. So a lot of finding sounds for me is really about blending those things. So like I say, these bits in the middle are really the bits where I find the core sound for tracks. How the pedal board's laid out, it's laid out so that I almost always have my right foot here, and it's laid out so that the fuzz and drive and distortion and tremolo and chorus, all of which quite often need to be turned on and off during songs, are all just within this arc of where my right foot's sitting anyway. And then we have the things that we add to these core sounds along the front, which I normally switch with my left foot. So I have each of these to give specific additional sounds to the core sound that's already there. So I'll go from left to right. You know, if I'm not really doing signal chain here, I might put up a signal chain diagram with this, but it's not necessarily the best way to understand the pedal board is to think in terms of the signal chain. It's better to understand, I think, in terms of the core sounds and how those are found, and then the embellishment. So back after a small break for some coughing. So yes, this front row is really for the embellishments to this kind of core reverb and delay sound. So starting at this end, I have the Neunaber Immerse reverberator, Mark II, and this is almost always set to a shimmer reverb. Actually, it's a really amazing pedal. It has truly phenomenal reverbs in it. If I play you just the whole reverb, which I'm a huge fan of, it's a really beautiful, deep modulating reverb, and their own WET or W3T algorithm, which is their flagship algorithm, is really very beautiful as well, especially on higher depth and mix settings. And in fact, when I'm recording, I use this a lot. I use this as much as the Specular Tempus. They both have very, very beautiful reverbs in them, but quite different in character. But live and with the Vanity Drones, because this doesn't have any sort of external switching, it's what you see is what you get on the pedal. I pretty much have it set to a shimmer. A shimmer setting all the time, and you can hear the shimmer setting on its own, which is shimmer is a reverb with an octave up added to the reverb tails generally. You can hear it with just this. It's particularly nice with swells, you know. Because it doesn't take just one note from the input signal and then add it to the reverb. It takes all of the notes from the reverb, so it works with chords. And the lovely thing about this is that you can control how quickly the reverb signal comes in, like this. So this is on a long setting. And actually, if I turn the mix all the way up, you can really hear that it swells. I generally use it on a very fast setting, actually. So you don't have to wait too long for it. But it also the depth knob on this also controls the sustain. So you can stop too much spillover from chord when you change chords. Because one of the problems with a shimmer reverb, and in fact any really long reverb, is that you can get a kind of muddy, out of tune feeling quite quickly as it spills over between chord changes like this. in more ambient instrumental stuff, I really like doing that. I like using a longer setting on that. But when you're in band playing arranged songs, you kind of need that not to happen. So I normally have it set around here. And also, this knob, when you're on the shimmer setting, is a blend, which blends in how much shimmer you get. So you can get a lot of the high end, or you can back it off a bit for a more subtle feel. It's still there, but it's much more subtle. Now, that's a nice sound on its own, but I like that sound added after the delays and reverbs that we're already probably using on a track. And that gives quite a much kind of bigger feel to it. And this is it with the shimmer reverb from here. And here, we hear that with the swell. And with single notes, you can get this, even with single notes, you can get quite an orchestral feel to it. And if you back the mix up a little bit, then you can get just this feeling of there being a string or a synth string part sitting behind what you're playing, and it's the changes in it aren't that distinct because the guitar's at the front, the clean signals at the front of the sound, but you just get that sitting behind it, which I think is really a really important part of the sound I use in the Vanity Drones a lot, like this. If you hear that without the shimmer, it's a much more traditional kind of guitar sound, just with lots of reverb and echo. Okay, so that's just briefly touching on what is really amazing and inspiring and deep pedal there. The Hall of Fame 2 reverb from TC Electronics. I have this for two reasons. I have this either to provide a sort of basic, nice, long reverb in case I'm using the Specular Tempus for delay. Sometimes I like to use multiple delays, and I use the delays on this, and it has some fairly unique delays as well. And like, why don't we look at one? Let's find a delay. Yeah, so this has a really nice dual stereo dual stereo delay, which is really great in recording. And you can change the ratios between them and so on. stuff like that's quite hard to get with anything else that I've got here. Multi-taps, and also has really nice diffuse delays where you can blend reverb and delay together. So if I'm using if the delay I've found that I want to use is on this, maybe like this. Then I would use this to put a fairly basic kind of church or hall. Set up so that I have 3 tone prints with 2 different kind of hall reverbs, and then the second thing I use it for, which is for a different flavor of shimmer. So the shimmer on the Immerse, as you've heard, is quite string-like. With the shimmer, at least the tone print that I found and adapted a little bit on the Hall of Fame, tends to be a bit more choral, which is really fun actually. So you can get these really big sounds. Those are the nice basic reverbs that are in this actually. That I use. But the thing I use it for most is for this kind of choral shimmer. And you really get the sense of human voices in that, which I think is amazing. And of course, you can combine it with the other. Here we have octaves on octaves on octaves, but you can combine it with the other shimmer. And then you get a bit of string and a bit of choral at the same time. Now a third kind of version of this is the crystal delay on this on the second Flashback II. Now I actually used this on a track for my Ambient album, and it's now used on the intro for a track with the Vanity Drones. Oops, that's a bit fast. On these pedals is that you can set them up so that with all of the knobs pointing straight up, they have the setting that you want, which means you don't have to do too much knob twiddling while you're playing, which is a hugely helpful feature in the editor. Yeah, so really you can change your presets just by turning the preset knob and not having to then go into these, which, you know, in between songs or during songs can be tricky. Yeah, so I mainly use it crystal setting. Now, the interesting thing about this crystal setting is that it doesn't just add an octave to the repeats. It feeds the repeats back into the circuit and adds another octave. So you get this sort of expanding, glittery sound, which I used on one of our tracks with some tapping like this. So I use that for specifically that song, but also like the shimmer reverbs, this extra octave can be fun just to add to normal sounds as well. These kind of ambient sounds. Bring the crystal in with the octave. What I really like about that is it's less predictable, and again, it's got movement. The octave's not just da. The octave's chopped up a little bit and almost has slightly kind of glitchy sound to it, which I think is really fun. The next additive pedal is this, which is an Electro Harmonix Deluxe Memory Man with Hazarai, which is a really cool delay pedal. Generally, which I've had for years and years and years, but I use it almost exclusively as a reverse echo, because I think the reverse echo setting on this is really the best I've ever used. I've tried it on the flashbacks, I've tried it on Boss pedals, I've tried the reverse setting on lots of different stuff, and I don't really understand why, but for some reason I don't get the kind of feel and so on that I really like from them. Not that there's anything wrong with them, there's just something special about the way this works. So if we hear on its own, the way I have it set, it's nice as well. It has presets here, and I just have it, you know, when I turn the board on, I just hit that, and it's pretty much always there. And also, this one isn't tap tempo linked. This is on its own tempo, which you can tap in, and which tends to be much slower than the other ones, but you'll hear that. Really adore reverse delay. Now, if you turn the blend right up, you get the Hendrix kind of effect, where it's all a delayed signal. You don't get any of the dry signal, and it starts to sound like Hendrix. Some of the solos and stuff from Electric Ladyland and Axis Bolt is lovely. And if you turn the repeats down so you only get one. Then it really starts to sound just like a reverse tape. So that's great fun, but I don't use it like that. I use it with just a little bit added in to the main sound. And if you add that to the delay and reverb that we've got as part of our core sound, I think you get really lovely. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of that sound. It creates this sort of glitchy thing. It reminds me of some of the production that you find on sort of mid-period Sigur Rós, which I'm a huge fan of. So I really love that. Another embellishment is to add multiple delays together, which is something I'm a big fan of, because again you get this kind of interesting and unexpected movement. And I often do that with this pedal, and this pedal has a really, which is the Doctor by Wampler, but this pedal also has a real trick up its sleeve, which is when you set it just close to oscillation, you can create a sort of pad of noise that sits behind what you're playing, which is just really lovely. I saw this on one of the Andy's demos from Reverb for this pedal, and when I listened to the delay sounds, which are lovely, and thought, that's a nice lo-fi delay pedal. And then I heard him do this, and I was like, okay, well, I absolutely have to have that. It's not what it was made for originally. I think it was designed for Brad Paisley to as a kind of lo-fi slapback delay. But that's really not how I use it at all. It also has really handy subdivision. Going to a quarter note tap tempo here, which is for that and for that and for that and for that. But then you can change this to eighth notes or to dotted eighths or to triplets, so that you're not just adding the same delay on top of other delays, which is really handy. Of course, you can change that with flashback as well. So if you listen to the tone of just the repeats, if I keep the repeats level away from oscillation, you can really hear it, the signal really degrades. And depending on what you do with the tone, you can make it even darker. Almost a whole vowel-like vocal quality to how it degrades there. Very light. But if you then start turning the repeats up, The depth of the modulation off, it's quite different. I've got a little bit of distortion as well. So those are some of the things we can add to those basic sounds here. Then we have more conventional ones here. So I have the Keeley D&M Drive, which has quite a high gain drive on one side and a sort of clone type boost on the other, sort of low gain boost. And I use this one, which is a low gain boost, a lot for single note sustaining notes. I really find that it adds just a sense of the bow. If you listen closely to a cello, a lot of people would say that the non-production people would probably think that a cello or a violin has a very pure kind of sound, but actually it has quite a lot of sort of distortion-like artifacts coming from the bow, and adding a little bit of distortion along with the swell and the sustainer on the Ed O'Brien Strat can give a bit of the sense of that bow being on the string like this. And of course it also adds a little bit of sustain as well. Then for really sustained stuff, we've got a much higher gain thing here. And then for the ultimate stuff, I've got ridiculously high gain. I have the Woolly Mammoth, and what I like about this is really the low end on this. I mean, that's what it's meant for. Lots of bass players use them. The ZVex Woolly Mammoth. It just has an absolutely incredible low end. I have to use the volume pedal for this. So the volume, I should say, the volume pedal is after all of the drives. So if the drives are on, the signal's constantly hitting them. So I'm using my volume control mainly here because it's easier, but so that the gain doesn't change as you swell it in. This can also do, since I'm playing an Ed O'Brien style, I can play one of his parts, but it can also do, it also absolutely nails the intro to Airbag in a way that I've never been able to with anything else. Sorry, a bit of an aside there. Okay, so up here we have the really experimental section. And to be honest, both of these pedals are new, so I'm still working on finding my way through these, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them. The Mood is a micro looper and delay stroke reverb thing. It has two sides, and it has a really, really wonderful thing on the reverb. I'm really not going to go into this too much, but it has a really wonderful thing on the reverb where you can control. So reverb is actually made up of thousands and thousands and thousands of little delays, all convoluted together, and this shows this really well because. I should say this expression pedal controls the volume of this. It has this really lovely reverb, but you can turn it down and start to hear the individual delay taps that go to make up the delay as well. It's a delay it's a multi-tap delay. And as someone who loves delay going into reverb and controlling the smearing of the delay tails, this really appeals to me. It also has this what they call a blip setting. I should do once I fully understand these two pedals, I'll do a full video on them. But this is just to get a flavour of the kind of stuff they do. So this blip setting is a sort of micro looper that takes snatches of what you're playing and plays them back, and you can affect the direction and the pitch of what comes. But the setting I really love on this is the octave up and reverse, which is... What I really, really love about that is that it stays musically with what you're playing, but it doesn't seem, at times it doesn't really seem to be sort of directly related to what you're playing. So yeah, it's lots of fun, and the micro looper section, which I'm still hugely getting to grips with, just constantly records what you're playing, and then when you hit the switch, it plays back the last bit of a snatch of what you played. So you can play a chord like this. It can also modify that. I mean, that's just set to play back what you played. Or again, a really fun reverse setting as well. Should be about there. So yeah, lots and lots of fun to be had there, and I'm only really scratching the surface of it. the Enzo Meris is a synthesizer. So it converts polyphonically, converts what you play and uses its own LFOs to create a sound. I won't go into the synth aspects yet because I'm really still I'm really still just finding out about how to use this because I'm not a synth person and I'm having to learn a lot about synths that I didn't know and how to use them. But one thing that it has, which I find absolutely remarkable, is that it has an arpeggiator, which I think is absolutely amazing. I'll give it a... So what the arpeggiator does, it takes the notes you play in a chord, and replays them to the tap tempo, and it plays them in the order of loudness that they went into the unit. It kind of has to be seen to be believed, I think. Now if we double the tempo, or make it even faster. You can have it 1 or 2 octaves down or 1 or 2 octaves up. Okay, so I hope that was interesting. I hope it gave an overview of how I use this, at least in the Vanity Drones. I use it a little bit differently, not hugely, but a little bit differently when I'm I'm looking for sounds to use in more abstract ambient stuff. But that's pretty much what the way that I tend to use it in the band, and how those sounds come about. And I think these show you using these two probably shows you the way that I'd like it to go a little bit more, with even more kind of synth type sounds, as well as the guitar sounds, the more traditional guitar sounds and the ambient guitar sounds. The idea of being able to use synthesis and using sort of glitchy sounding stuff and pitch changing stuff, but that does it in relatively sort of unpredictable ways, is what I'm really interested in for the next batch of songs that me and Julio and the others are working on, particularly when we get out. So I'm using lockdown to try and find these sounds, and so that when we get back together we can start working on them. Okay, well, I hope you really enjoyed that. I'm going to go for a lie down now. I'm sorry about all the edits from having a bit of a cough or needing break, and hope that was really useful. Okay, bye-bye. Everyone take care, look after yourselves, look after each other, and stop in. Bye.